Have you ever wanted something desperately? I mean, something you just had to have in order to be happy. Yeah, me too. In fact, when I was 19, I so desperately wanted something, I could almost taste it. Ovaltine. It was 1969. My infantry company was setting up a night position along a rugged jungle mountain trail in South Vietnam. It had been raining for 17 days. And there I was, soaking wet, covered in mud, and in a fabulous mood. I was in a fabulous mood because 10 hours earlier, the skies had cleared long enough for a resupply helicopter to reach us, and among the welcome letters from home, the supplies, and the dry socks, there was a care package from my parents that contained, wait for it, a jar of Ovaltine. Thank you, Ovaltine thanks you. Now, I can see, though, that some of you aren't impressed. And you may be thinking, Ovaltine? A powdered mix to make a chocolatey drink? That's no big deal. And yet, in that place, at that time, that jar of Ovaltine was an incredible luxury. It was a connection to home. And a treasure I carefully packed as my company prepared to move out. I'll see you later. Over the years, I have occasionally been asked, what was it like in Vietnam? And that is a difficult question to answer because, well, there were good days and bad days, but also the war was very different in very different parts of the country. I was up in the mountains, and that war, the tactics employed by both sides were very different from the type of war that was fought in the Mekong Delta or for the men that were fighting in the rice paddies in the lowlands. But in 1969, during the rainy season, in and around the Ashaw Valley, in the mountains in that area, a typical, routine, normal day for me was like this. Picture yourself at the base of a steep hill in a dense, dense forest. You were carrying a fully loaded M16 rifle, weighs about 8 pounds, and on your back is a rucksack, military backpack, much like this one. And in that rucksack, and in various pockets of your jungle fatigues, you were carrying another 50 or 60 pounds of ammunition, grenades, claymores, food, water, bedroll, bandages, bug juice, everything you need for a 5-day walk in the woods in a war zone. Did I mention the rain? It's still raining. Your entire company, about 120 men, begins to trudge up that hill, single file, about 15 feet between each one. And those 240 boots and the torrential downpour soon churn that hillside into a slippery, muddy slop. Every so often you hear someone in front of you or behind you slip, fall, curse, and get up. Every so often you slip, fall, curse, and get up. You are soon soaking wet and covered with mud. Well, we went slip sliding up and down hill after hill after hill that day, and I remained in my fabulous mood the entire time, sustained by the happy thought of the hot cup of chocolatey Ovaltine I was going to enjoy at the end of the day. I took that rucksack off, and oh man, finally, it's Ovaltine time. There I was, soaking wet, covered in mud, and now nearly in tears because I couldn't have a cup of Ovaltine. God, I hate this place. I hate this stupid war. I hate my life. All I want to do is get back to the world and live a normal life. Well, 13 years later, I'm married, 2 young sons. Thank you. And I'm sitting at the kitchen table in our apartment in New Jersey, and I'm alone. It's late. It's very late. Chris, my wife, and my 2 sons have been asleep for hours and hours. I hadn't been very good company that night. I had just lost my job and was feeling the frustration, the anger, and the anxiety of being an unemployed husband, father, breadwinner. Kitchen table was littered with unpaid bills. You ever have too many bills, not enough bucks? Yeah, you know how that feels. I was certainly miserable, angry, and frustrated that night. So I got up to make myself a pot of coffee so I could stay awake and be miserable longer. And I got to the cupboard. I was confronted with a jar of Ovaltine. And instantly, I was back on that wet, cold, muddy hill in Vietnam, remembering my angry prayer. It was as if this jar of Ovaltine were lecturing me, saying, there was a time when all you wanted, all you needed, all you prayed for was a chance at a normal life. And it hit me. My angry prayer had been granted in full. You want to talk normal? Married, children, money problems? I was the king of normal. Living the very life I had so desperately wanted. Isn't it amazing that at a low point in our life, a small thing, a cup of Ovaltine, enough to make us happy, and yet when we have more, we want even more and maybe don't appreciate all that we have. It's as if comfort blinds us to our blessings. And if that's true, then it's during our low points that our true path to happiness is revealed to us. Because in our desperate hours, all the non-essentials fall away, leaving only what is important to us, and that's where our happiness lies. Think of a low point in your life. What did you desperately want? What did you desperately need at that time? Wasn't it ultimately some form of regaining balance, getting back to normal, living a normal life? And yet, we all know that there are events in life that forever change our normal. So what do we do when the damage is beyond repair, the loss irretrievable, and the pain unbearable? We suffer. It's like being on that hill in Vietnam. You're wet and cold and sprawled in the mud, and at first all you can do is curse your condition. But if you're lucky, maybe you realize how different the world looks when you're sprawled in the mud. And you understand that all those important tasks on yesterday's to-do list, getting that promotion, making that purchase, finishing that project, they are all meaningless compared to the simple joy of being able to hug and be hugged by a parent, a spouse, a child, a sibling, a friend. And that realization can change us. It allows us to get up and begin to adjust. Even against our will, we can begin to adjust to this new painful normal. Eventually, we heal. But thankfully, there are scars. I say thankfully because those scars become our ever-present reminder of what has gone before. And what has been has always been the foundation of what can be. Life is difficult. We all have struggles, and sometimes our struggles may seem to be unbearable, but they can also show us how little we truly need to be happy. Sometimes a cup of Ovaltine is enough.